Good evening. The Secretary General will brief you on today's meeting so far, and then he'll be happy to take your questions. Secretary General.
Good evening. We have just had a very good meeting with the defense ministers of the NATO allied countries. We took further decisions to continue NATO's adaptation to the challenges we face. A key component of our adaptation is a robust and agile command structure. This underpins both our strengthened deterrence and defense posture and our ability to project stability beyond NATO's borders. At the Warsaw Summit last year, we decided to launch an assessment of the NATO command structure in light of the changed security environment, to ensure it can do the job across the full spectrum of alliance missions. Today, we agreed on the outline design for an adapted NATO command structure, which will be the basis for further work. Let me mention some key elements. A command for the Atlantic, to ensure that sea lines of communication between Europe and North America remain free and secure. This is vital for our transatlantic alliance. A new command to improve the movement of military forces across Europe, and ways to strengthen the logistical function across the NATO command structure. Our military commands will now flesh out the details, and the results of the work will be presented to defense ministers next February. The adaptation of the NATO command structure will further strengthen our ability to reinforce allies quickly and effectively. But military mobility is not only about new commands. It is also about the ability to move forces and equipment quickly with the right transport means and the right infrastructure. Since 2014, we have made good progress in improving national legislation, removing many bureaucratic hurdles to allow us to move forces across Allied territory. But much more needs to be done. We need to ensure that national legislation facilitating border crossing is fully implemented. We need enough transport capacity at our disposal, which largely comes from the private sector. And we need to improve infrastructure, such as roads, bridges, railways, runways, and ports. So NATO is now updating the military requirements for civilian infrastructure. Of course, military mobility is not just about the military. It requires a whole-of-government approach. So it is important that our defense ministers make our interior, finance, and transport ministers aware of military requirements. It is also important that NATO coordinates with the European Union. And we are indeed working closely and actively together on this issue. For instance, we share information on standards, requirements, as well as challenges related to civilian infrastructure. So I envisage that military mobility could become a real flagship of NATO-EU cooperation. Finally, we discussed ways to strengthen our cyber defenses. We must be just as effective in the cyber domain as we are on land, at sea, and in the air, with real-time understanding of the threats we face, and the ability to respond however and whenever we choose. Today, ministers agreed on the creation of a new Cyber Operations Center as part of the outline design for the adapted NATO command structure. This will strengthen our cyber defenses and help integrate cyber into NATO planning and operations as well. Operations at all levels. We also agreed that we will be able to integrate allies' national cyber capabilities into NATO missions and operations, while nations maintain full ownership of those capabilities, just as allies own the tanks, the ships, and the aircraft in NATO missions. NATO is a defensive alliance whose actions are always subject to strict political oversight and always act in accordance with international law. So we have taken many important decisions to pave the way to next year's summit of NATO leaders here in Brussels. We will continue doing whatever is necessary to keep our territory safe and our citizens safe. And with that, I'm ready to take your questions.